Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio. So today, I am here to tell you about a really weird new winning deck, which has just popped up over in Japan. Now, bearing in mind, the new set, Blue Sky Stream and Skyscraping Perfect, the new double set, has just come out in Japan. It has just become legal for tournament play this very weekend, so I started looking around for winning decks, expecting to see lots of things like Rayquaza VMAX, and what do I find? Suicune Altaria. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, not a pairing that was on my radar even a little bit, not a deck I was expecting to see winning. And I don't have a full deck list for you. I'm sorry, the full deck list has not been shared. What I do have for you, however, is what I think is an explanation of the deck. And I'm going to be honest with you, this one sounds firm. Now, all we've got is this picture, which shows us Suicune V, Oranguru, Altaria, and Jesse and James. The good news is, we can look at this and go, oh, hang on a second. That seems to make a bit of a nice deck now, doesn't it? So, clearly here your main attacker is Suicune. Suicune is the one with whom you are attacking. What does Suicune actually do? Well, it's got a really nice ability that says, while it's in your active spot once during your turn, you may draw a card. And that's kind of lovely. It's good draw power. It's not phenomenal. There are other things that can be used to draw. Kricketune draws until you've got 3 cards in your hand. So sure, if you've got a few cards, it won't draw anything, but it can do it from the bench. Suicune is fine, but let's not get overly excited about Suicune. I know Cinccino's a stage 1, but discard a card from your hand, draw 2. A lot of the time, Cinccino's going to end up being a better option. Okay, the draw power is nice, it's not the reason to play the card. But Suicune also has an attack that for 2 energy, 1 water, 1 colorless, does 20 damage base, plus 20 more for each bench Pokemon in play, yours and your opponent's. So if both players have got a full bench, you'll do a whopping 220, which is actually a really nice number, because that is a one-hit KO on pretty much any Pokemon V. Yeah, there are a few here and there that will escape, but generally speaking, that's a one-hit KO on anything. But of course, that's only actually true where your opponent fills up their bench, and your opponent is not going to want to fill up their bench very often for pretty obvious reasons. So, you're hitting decent damage, not phenomenal damage. This is the kind of card that goes really well when you need an efficient attacker. Not an attacker which is so gosh darn good, you are going to run through absolutely everything. Just when you need something which is going to do a decent amount of damage and run through if your opponent is struggling. So where does the disruption come in here? It's Altaria. You see, Altaria is a new Stage 1 Dragon Pokemon, and as a huge bonus has free retreat, which is awesome, because it basically means that your opponent cannot gust it into the active and keep it there, which is a huge handy bonus. And Altaria's got a rather nice ability that says that once during your turn, you may search your deck for a supporter card and put it on top of your deck. It does not go into your hand, it goes on top of your deck. But then do remember that Suicune, when it's active, lets you draw a card. So that means that although, yes, Altaria is putting it on top of your deck, Suicune is guaranteeing that you draw that card straight away. If you combine the abilities of Suicune and Altaria, you are just searching for any supporter card and putting it into your hand, using a Stage 1 and a Basic, which is awesome. There was another Dragon Pokemon that did something similar to this a little while ago. That was the Dragonite from Team Up that let you just search for a supporter card and put it into your hand, but that was a Stage 2. There were some fun decks that played Lance Prism Star, which let you play a Dragonite just straight from your deck, and then you could use it to search supporters, but that was always very gimmicky. This is a Stage 1 Pokemon and a Basic, it's really not that hard. And then, of course, we've got the obvious things. You aren't drawing dead here. You've got Professor's Research, so that if you do have a bad hand, Research will get you right out of it. Similarly, we've got things like Melanie, And money can be draw for you in terms of shuffle draw, but also if you think your opponent's got a good hand, money is great in terms of shuffling it up and giving them a much lower hand, which is kind of awesome. And of course, we've got that whole, we've all seen and played a million games where next person to draw boss's orders wins. Well, you are going to draw boss's orders because you can guarantee you draw it with Altaria and Suicune. So there's your kind of starter for 10. Yay, I can get the supporters I want at the right time. That's quite nice. But you will notice that the other card that we saw there was Jesse and James. Now remember, this card is currently banned in the expanded format. It is currently not banned in the standard format. As a side note, Belelbra and Bryson Man is banned in the standard format, and that would be a pretty cool one that would potentially work in a deck like this, but that is all a moot point because, like I've said, Belelbra and Bryson Man is banned, but Jesse and James is very much not banned, so that's where we're going here. We're searching out Jesse and James, and Jesse and James says that each player discards 2 cards from their hand. Your opponent discards first. Cool. And sure, this is going to often leave you with an empty hand, which is going to be rubbish, but bearing in mind that you can search any supporter card you like on your next turn. Like, if you and your opponent both end up with a 0-card hand, they're top decking, you're drawing any supporter card you like next turn to get you out of the bind. And this is where Suicune comes in. I told you that Suicune's attack wasn't great. It was fine. It is the perfect kind of attack for when your opponent doesn't have much going on. So sure, you're not getting a lot of 1-hit KOs, it's a lot of 2-hit KOs or 1-hit KO if they're weaker Pokemon, but you're constantly wrecking their hand. And that means that they are not going to have many options, so they're not going to be building up the energy on their Pokemon because they're not going to have the energy. They're not going to be building up their evolutions on the bench because they're not going to have the Pokemon to evolve. And when your opponent is running short of options, a nice 2-energy efficient attack will just run through and win you the game. It's so grinchy, and I absolutely love it. Now, when I started this video, I did tell you I didn't have a deck list to share. The good news is I was chatting to the lovely Antoine Boulet, and it turns out I do have a winning list to share. Now, we're not going to go through every single card because the list will vary, but there are a few cards which really do need to be pointed out as important here. Now, in terms of Pokemon, we want to be looking at the aforementioned Kricketune, and we want to be looking at Oranguru. Now, I told you that Kricketune draws till you have 3 cards in your hand, 4 if it's active, incidentally, and I said that when you got lots of cards in your hand, that's a bad thing, because you won't be drawing any. But this is a deck where you're wrecking your own hand and your opponent's, so this is going to be an excellent option, because if you go down to 0 cards in hand, you can actually use Kricketune to draw 3, and then draw any supporter, which is awesome. Oranguru swaps the top card of your deck for a card in your hand, so clearly that's going to be really good as an alternative to Suicune. But between Suicune, Kricketune and Oranguru, you should basically always be drawing the cards that you need here, which is absolutely wonderful. Now, I have said we are rocking a 2-energy attack here with Suicune, so Melanie becomes a great option. There are other ways to accelerate water energy, but Melanie will just attach a water energy from your discard pile away Pokemon V and draw 3 cards. That's the best option here. Remember, we're searching out supporters with Altaria. You only need 1 extra energy here, so Melanie becomes a phenomenal option to turn this into a pseudo single energy attack. Also, while we're talking energy, do remember it's water colorless. This is a great option for capture energy. Capture energy will pay the colorless and allow you to get a basic like Oranguru, Kricketune, Swablu, etc. It's a really nice option here. Because we are playing a super annoying deck and we're trying to limit options, Path to the Peak becomes your stadium of choice. Path to the Peak, remember, turns off abilities of all Pokemon with a rule box. Yes, obviously that will turn off Suicune's ability, and it will turn off Kricketune's ability, but the combination of Altaria and Oranguru will still allow you to grab a supporter card whenever you like. Obviously, if your opponent's not relying on it, and by it I mean abilities, don't play it. But if your opponent is relying on abilities, this becomes a super good option to hurt your opponent. Now, Giant Cape is a card which is showing up as a free of in the list I've got to show you in a moment here. And it's not Giant Cape, is it? Giant Cape's the old card. It's Cape of Toughness, because it gives basic Pokemon an extra 50 HP, so that is going to put your boy Suicune up to a far more respectable 260. And again, the theory here is really simple. You're wrecking your opponent's hand, you are super consistent, and you're hitting just a nice, efficient amount of damage. Being able to take a bit more damage for being KO'd is clearly going to be a good thing. And a card you're all probably expecting me to talk about at this point, and you would be right, is Reset Stamp. Reset Stamp makes your opponent shuffle the hand into their deck and draw a new hand equal to their remaining prizes. So if you can get your opponent, if they're down to 2 prizes remaining, you play Reset Stamp, they go down to a 2-card hand. You play Jesse and James, they got a 0-card hand. And this is the entire point of the deck. Suicune is a low-energy, efficient attacker that can use Melanie and has a nice built-in draw engine. You are aiming to wreck your opponent's hand and then just sit there with Suicune and roll. Also, I should mention Pow Pow becomes a great option here. We're searching out and using whatever supporter we like every turn. Clearly, being able to recover them is good. And there's going to be plenty of games where you don't even need Jesse and James. There are going to be plenty of games where you can just sit there with Suicune, and Suicune is just a fast, efficient attacker. There are going to be plenty of games where you go second, get a turn 1 Suicune, and just run through your opponent, because we've all won games because we have decks which are just more efficient than our opponents. But Jesse and James is going to work beautifully. Also, do remember a lovely tech option here is Lieutenant Surge's strategy. If you are searching out supporters, and bearing in mind, if you've got, say, Suicune in the active, 2 Altaria and an Oranguru on the bench, you can search 2 supporters in 1 turn. Then Surge lets you play itself, and then 2 others. That could be a fun option. Sure, when we hit the rotation, which is about when this comes out here, unfortunately, there are going to be questions about how this deck can cope without Jesse and James, but any kind of disruption supporter will work very nicely here. This seems like a nice archetype that can cover us forward, especially if we get some other Grinchy supporters. I'm a fan, ladies and gentlemen. On the screen, you will see a list that did win a City League over in Japan. It's a bit of a blurry list, but the top row there is just your Suicune and your Mew. I think it's pretty much, although it's a bit blurry, I think all the cards are pretty visible. To be honest, it's better than a lot of the Japanese lists I show you. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. A deck which I was not expecting to see anytime soon, but I am absolutely delighted we did. But now I want to hear from you guys and how good you think it is. So go nuts in the comment section, but be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing is always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.